Honestly, my biggest and only major criticism regarding this movie is it wasn't gay enough. And I'm dead serious on that one. That's not a joke. And welcome to my safe haven, everybody. Thank you guys so much for clicking on another video and joining me here on the Black Gay Comic Geek channel. If this is your first time checking out the channel, let me introduce myself. Hey, how's it going? My name is Michael. I call myself the Black Gay Comic Geek, and I always say the things that I love to talk about on my channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic, or any variation of the force. I like to talk superheroes. I like to talk video games. I like to talk comic books. I like to talk action movies. I like to talk animated movies, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and of course, if you couldn't tell by the name, I like to talk about black representation and queer representation. We will get to that. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you think representation equals normalization and representation matters, and you like the fact that there is a rare black gay YouTuber reviewing movies and TV shows and nerd content, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, become a regular here on the channel, check out the other videos on my channel, and while you're at it, hit the like button on this video and any other video that you watch on the channel. I cannot emphasize that enough. I know you guys, if you watch YouTube regular, people always say, hit the like button. There's a reason why we say that, because it really actually does help with the algorithm. It tells YouTube that the video is worth getting out there to recommend to other people, that the channel is worth recommending to other people, so more subscribers could come to the channel, so the channel can grow, so that I can become more of a full-time YouTube creator, so I can make more money off of YouTube and continue to grow the Black Gay Comic Geek LLC. And it is an easy and free way to support your boy and support the channel. So please, 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 if you're coming across this video, if you enjoy my content, hit that like button, hit that like button, hit that like button. So if you guys couldn't tell by the title, if you couldn't tell by the fact that I'm wearing a Black Panther shirt, the fact that I got this Comic-Con exclusive Black Panther Culture Fly jacket on, I got the Kimoyo beads that I'm rocking right now. We're here to talk about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Of course, it's gonna be a non-spoiler review because the movie's not officially out yet. It comes out this Friday, or technically it comes out on Thursday, because most major movies come out on Thursdays nowadays. But if you guys are following me on Instagram, which I hope you are, and it will be no surprise to you to know that I actually was lucky enough to see this movie about 2 weeks ago now. I actually went to the world premiere, the purple carpet world premiere of Wakanda Forever. And actually, by the time this video goes up, I will be seeing it again on Wednesday, November 9th. So by the time this video goes up, it will be tomorrow night. So yeah, I hadn't seen it since I saw it 2 weeks ago. But yeah, if you're not following me on Instagram, which again, you definitely should, but if you're not, I got to meet Ryan Coogler, the director himself, and talk to him for like a quick hot second. I got to meet Quinta Brunson from Abbott Elementary, same with Shirley Ralph. And this is actually my second time meeting Shirley Ralph, because she did a performance at my alma mater, Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, HBCU. And so many other actors and directors from Marvel, like Dustin Daniel Cretton, who directed Shang-Chi, and he's also going to be doing Avengers, the Kang Dynasty. And the biggest flex of them all, I got to take a picture with the man himself, the Kevin Feige. Again, follow me on Instagram if you're not. Now, to burst a couple bubbles, because a lot of people were like, what was he like? What did you guys talk about? We didn't really talk. It was just, hey, can I take a picture? Up, snap, move on. And plus, like, I was so excited that, like, Kevin Feige was right next to me. I'm pretty sure if I wanted to, I could have said a couple words to him or something, kind of like how I did with Ryan Coogler. I could have said a couple words, but I was just so like, Kevin Feige, that my brain just wasn't functioning at the moment. But I got the photo of Kevin Feige, so that's cool. But anyway, let's get into the non-spoiler review for Wakanda Forever. Now, if you guys have seen my video where I posted my initial reactions to the movie not that long after I saw it, you already know that I really enjoyed this movie. I thought this movie was incredible. So I'm not even gonna draw it out. Like, I love this movie, and honestly, it is the best movie of Phase 4. Now, with that said, I know saying that is like, take that with a grain of salt to a certain extent, because for the most part, Phase 4 has been a little bit of a struggle with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially when it comes to the movies. And like, honestly, the best movies of Phase 4 were Shang-Chi, No Way Home, and now Wakanda Forever. And Wakanda Forever is the best out of all of them by a lot. Like, Wakanda Forever is on another league compared to the other movies. Like, honestly, like, I would have said No Way Home was my favorite movie of Phase 4. Now it's Wakanda Forever. And honestly, if you ask me what my top 5 of the entire MCU is, it would be Infinity War, Winter Soldier, Wakanda Forever, the first Avengers, and No Way Home. And I would also say that Wakanda Forever is the best MCU sequel other than Winter Soldier. And I would actually put it on par with the Winter Soldier. Now, if you just looked at my rankings that I just gave you, obviously I like Winter Soldier better, but Wakanda Forever is right there at number 3. And I said this on Twitter, and I also said this in my initial reaction. Like, this movie, they had an impossible task with regards to this movie in terms of continuing on the mantle of Black Panther, continuing on the franchise of Black Panther, continuing on the legacy of Black Panther, continuing on with these actors without their number one on the call sheet, without their leading actor, without their person that was inhabiting the role of T'Challa in the Black Panther, and that is Chadwick Boseman. And despite that impossible situation that Ryan Coogler and the rest of the cast and Marvel has been put in, they did a phenomenal job with this movie. Like, the Black Panther score just dropped on like Apple Music, Spotify, and all that stuff this Friday. So definitely check out the score of the soundtrack, not the score soundtrack, but the regular soundtrack. The soundtrack is incredible. I can't wait for the score soundtrack to drop. Ludwig von Gorison did his thing once again with regards to the score for this movie. There's so many like banger score. I'm not talking about the soundtrack with Rihanna with Lift Me Up. I'm talking about the score in it itself, like with the Wakanda theme music. That's the score. And like the new music score that they had, like, the score was bumping, and because you had characters like Namor, played by Tena Huerta, and Namor in this version of the MCU's version of Namor is Spanish. They also had Spanish influences both in the score and in the sound. Like, the score was slapping the entire time in this movie. Like I said, I cannot wait for the score soundtrack to drop, because just like the regular soundtrack, I'm getting it day one. I'm going to be listening to it while I'm in the car, and it's going to be bumping. But with that said, let me backtrack a little bit, because I do want to kind of get this out of the way. My criticism, because I only really have the one major criticism regarding this movie. Now, granted, I have other criticism, but this is my one major criticism regarding the movie, and I did allude to it in the intro of this video. But yeah, this movie was not gay enough. And I know people are always like, oh, Michael's, because my motto is like, how do I make it blacker? How do I make it gayer? But like, they literally had the opportunity in this movie, because they made a whole big stink about Michaela Cole being cast in this movie. And Michaela Cole was announced to be playing the character of Anika. And Anika is a character within the comics who is the trainer of the Dora Milaje. And she had a whole comic book run written by Roxane Gay about Anika and her girlfriend, Ayo. And Ayo has been a part of the MCU going all the way back to Civil War, played by Florence Kasumba. And we also saw her in the Black Panther movie. We also saw her as a major role in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we have gotten somewhat of an emotional attachment kinda towards Ayo. We don't get as much as her as I would like, but Ayo was already right there, and now we got her other half, Anika, played by Michaela Cole, and barely even 5 seconds of a moment where they're like, oh, they're together. It was like 5 seconds of the movie, and it was a terrible 5 seconds. Like, this movie was almost 3 hours. They could have had a scene, a much longer scene, where the two of them shows like that. It's obvious that they're in a relationship or something. Obviously, I'm not asking for it to take over the entire movie, but as much as I talk about the kiss in Eternals and how I wished for more, even that was better queer representation than what we got in Wakanda Forever. And it's honestly kind of trash, especially when it's coming from a black movie, black writers, black directors, black costume designers, etc. And as much as they talk about representation being important for this movie, representing Wakanda with black people, representing Spanish and indigenous culture with Namor and Mayan culture, etc. But yet when it comes to queer representation, we're still lacking. even when it comes to art, and that's why I always criticize when I talk about representation and things like that. People are like, why don't we just make our own? Why don't we just black people make? And I'm just like, yeah, but even when we have black people make things, and I get Ryan Coogler, it's not really Ryan Coogler's movie. He still has constraints with Marvel, so I don't really know how much how much he may have tried to put in there. Marvel was like, no, but even still, I'm pretty sure if he really wanted to, it could have been there. But it's like, even when our own are creating things, we still have issues when it comes to queer representation, or even sometimes how women are depicted in black created properties. So I really wasn't a fan of that. I was just like, if this is the least you're gonna give me, you might as well not even put it in the movie at all. Like, don't even give it to me. Like, why bother? Which continues to make me worried because we know Young Avengers is coming. I mean, there's a rumor that John Locke, who was one of the leads in Heartstopper, because he's been cast in Agatha Coven of Chaos, and there's the rumor mill circulating that he's been cast as an older version of Billy Kaplan Wiccan, who is a prominent queer gay character in Marvel Comics. I don't know if he's been cast as Wiccan. We don't know. That's just the speculation because he is an openly gay actor. But at the same time, I'm like, why would Wiccan be in Agatha Coven of Chaos? More than likely, he's playing Agatha's son, Nicholas Scratch. But again, we don't know. But either way, we know Young Avengers is coming, and I'm just like, you're just giving me more and more reason to be nervous about what you're going to do with the characters of Wiccan and Hulkling. So yeah, like I said, that's my biggest criticism regarding the movie. But outside of that, I don't really have any criticisms regarding this movie. Like, this movie was incredible from start to finish. Like I mentioned, this movie was almost 3 hours, and for the most part, it goes. They really don't give you much time to breathe in this movie, and that could be a criticism for some, but it's like, it's going from start to finish. Like, and this movie does a great job balancing the grief and the mourning that both the cast is doing for Chadwick Boseman, that the characters are doing for the character of T'Challa, and we as an audience are feeling for the loss of Chadwick Boseman and T'Challa, the king of Wakanda, and the loss that we're all feeling, some obviously more than others, but it does a great job balancing that, plus the action and the story and the emotion and also the comedy. Like, obviously with an MCU movie, all MCU movies have a level of comedy in them, and the comedy in this movie, all of it worked. It was funny, especially the character of Riri Williams, played by Dominique Thorne. I feel like her character was the one that had the most comedy in this movie. And honestly, I'm way more excited. Not that I wasn't excited before, but I'm way more excited for the solo Ironheart movie after seeing Dominique Thorne's performance and her character in general in this movie. I'm way more excited about her show. And the thing about Dominique Thorne's Riri Williams, she was hella black in this movie. Like, you could tell her character was raised in the hood. Like, she was so, like, the slang, the terminology, like, I loved her. I loved her. I loved her. And the thing about this movie that was great, and something I don't think I've ever seen before, is like, because Riri Williams is a genius. She is recreating the Iron Man suit after being inspired by Tony Stark, calling herself Ironheart. She is not as smart as Shuri, but on par with Shuri. And so you have Shuri, played by Letitia Wright, Riri Williams, played by Dominique Thorne, these two genius black women interacting with each other, Shuri being somewhat of an older mentor, and there's no level of animosity, there's no jealousy. It's just you just have these two genius black women coming together and killing it. And speaking of killing it, like, every single actor, the main cast in this movie, they did not come to play. They were letting people know that this franchise can still be continued. Unfortunately, because they didn't have a choice, but they can still continue this franchise without Chadwick Boseman, because the acting in this movie was stellar. It was incredible. Like, there definitely needs to be some Oscar nominations or recommendations, especially for the character of Queen Ramonda, played by the legend, the iconic Angela Bassett. And I said this both on Twitter and in my initial thoughts. Angela Bassett acted her entire Wakandussy off in this movie. And I will say that again. Angela Bassett put her whole Wakandussy on display and said, I am the queen of Wakanda, and I am the Angela Bassett, and you will put respect on my name in this movie. And that's the blessing within this tragedy that transpired in this movie. Because Chadwick Boseman is unfortunately no longer with us, it allowed other characters to shine where they didn't really get that much shine in the first movie. And one of the main characters of that is Queen Ramonda. And not to say Queen Ramonda didn't have her moment in the last movie. She definitely did, but she was the moment in this movie because now that her son is no longer with us, now because it's no spoiler to say that T'Challa is dead in the movie. They made that very clear in the trailer, but now she has to take over as the ruler of Wakanda because Shuri's too young to do it. And so she's throughout this movie, and like again, her performance, oh my, like chills. Especially like there's one scene in particular between her and Denai Guerrero, another character who acted her Wakandussy off, her Dora Milaje Dussy off in this movie. Like there's a scene between the two of them, almost brings you to tears. And speaking of bringing you to tears, like I said, this movie wasn't all a grief fest, but there was a lot of moments of mourning and grief and emotion in this movie. And so, yeah, definitely bring your tissues for this movie because you're going to be crying. Like, hell, you're probably going to start crying in the first like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the movie, especially even before you even get to the opening credits, you're probably going to be weeping. Like the whole audience, if you see it in a packed house, they are going to be silent in those first 5 minutes of the movie because just the emotion is going to be so high from the start. And you are going to think that you're in the audience watching A Quiet Place. That's how silent that theater is going to be in those first like opening moments of this movie. Because man, rest in peace Chadwick Boseman. I didn't even know this man. And like when I found out that he passed away, I was working that night. That's back when I worked overnights at a hotel. And I had to go into the kitchen and get away because like I just started bawling. And I don't know this man from paint. I've never met this man. I have no attachment to this man, and I don't cry over celebrity deaths. I think the only real time I've cried over celebrity death was Michael Jackson. And even him, I don't know. But even still, Michael Jackson is like, that's an icon. That's a legend. He's a person I've known about and admired and wanted to be like and wanted to meet since for as long as I can remember. And it's not to say Chadwick Boseman isn't a legend, but I haven't been with Chadwick Boseman from childhood to adulthood. I only really started paying attention to him. I knew about him because of 42 and when he played James Brown. And even those movies I hadn't even seen yet. I just knew about them and knew about him. Black Panther was honestly the first time, or Civil War rather, was the first time I've actually seen him on screen. And then of course I went back and watched his other movies. But like, I think the thing that broke me the most was he had such a career ahead of him. But the thing that really broke me and why I started crying is when I was watching those old videos of like I think it was Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, where you had the black people talking in front of the poster of Chadwick Boseman saying what the first Black Panther movie meant to them. And then he would come out and like the joy and the tears that other black people had because he was there, like our king, Wakanda, like, oh man. So yeah, I didn't remember what I was saying or what the point that I was trying to give, but rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But yeah, another character that we got to talk about, and I kind of mentioned him briefly earlier, but we got to talk about Namor, played by Tenoch Huerta, newcomer Tenoch Huerta, newcomer to at least the American cinema, Tenoch Huerta as Namor, the Kulkulkan. And oh man, first of all, Tenoch Huerta is fine. That man is sexy. And every moment that he was on screen was dripping with sex. And the funny thing about that was he wasn't even supposed to be. He was supposed to be menacing, and he was menacing, but it was a sexy menacing. And not only was his acting, but I found the story that they crafted around Namor, the fact that they made Atlantis, which is what it is in the comics, just like it is with Aquaman, but Namor, or Namor as it is in the comics, but in the MCU, it's Namor because he's Spanish now. But Namor came first. That's what he said. And so Atlantis and all that, Namor is one of the first superheroes created. As a matter of fact, Superman came, I believe, in 1934, and Namor was 1 year later in 1935. So they're the two oldest superheroes in existence. Like, Namor is even older than Marvel Comics itself. And the reason I bring that up is because there's so much lore and so many storylines regarding the character of Namor. However, it's now the world's mainstream audience's first time really being introduced to this character. And the changes that they injected with the character of Namor were so incredible, were so perfect, made so much sense, and made Namor so much more interesting. And this is something I don't generally say, but I want them to go back and retroactively retcon his entire origin in the comics. I want the MCU version of Namor to be the Namor in the comics. Cause my God, it's so good. And like I said, I generally don't say that because a lot of some of the changes that they make in the MCU, I'm like, oh, I wish they didn't do that. I don't like that. That doesn't make sense, but whatever. It's a movie. Let's let it ride. Like, for example, Civil War, Captain America Civil War is nothing like the Civil War in the comics. Scar that they did in She-Hulk, the way he looks at least, I'm like, nah, I don't like the way he looks. I wish we had an actual Planet Hulk movie as opposed to what they did with Thor Ragnarok, because that was basically Planet Hulk. But again, I'm not even gonna go down the line of things I wish they didn't change yada, but Namor is a change that I want because he was so interesting as a character. And honestly, even though he was the villain in this movie, he wasn't a villain. He was just the antagonist, but he wasn't a villain. He was a character that you understood. He was a character that you sympathized with. He was a character that in many ways you kind of rooted for in a certain way because you're like, he's kind of right at the end of the day. And obviously I'm not going to say what his motivations and stuff like that are. He wasn't 100% right in a lot of his actions, but he wasn't a straight up villain in this movie, and you can understand his motivations and understand why he's doing the things that he's doing. And a lot of that is on the strength of the writing, on the strength of Tenoch Huerta's acting, on the strength of Ryan Coogler being the one to introduce Namor. And I'm actually glad that it was Ryan Coogler to be the one to introduce this character. And I know for the longest time, because I've seen a couple interviews with Ryan Coogler talking about Wakanda Forever on these press tours, and he said that he's always wanted to be the one to introduce Namor within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he actually went to Kevin Feige and said, please do not give this character to nobody else but me. Please let me be the one to introduce him within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm so glad that Kevin Feige acquiesced to Ryan Coogler's request because Namor is incredible. Speaking of another incredible person, and this one makes me scared, but Letitia Wright, oh my gosh, she was so freaking good in this movie. There was so many moments that she had me in my feelings. There was so many moments where I was like, yeah, like you better act. And like she carried, her and Angela Bassett, and not just her, but like all the actors, but Angela Bassett and Letitia Wright, like they were the 1 and 2 punch of this movie. And the reason I said it kind of makes me a little scared because we already know with some past things from Letitia Wright, she's definitely got some problematic moments and instances. And I'm just like, and now that this franchise is kind of riding on her shoulders, more or less, riding on all the women's shoulders of Wakanda, not just her, but all of their shoulders. But as the sister of T'Challa, she's obviously getting a little bit more focus. And I'm just like, do not screw it up. Say nothing about your political beliefs on Twitter. As a matter of fact, don't even be on Twitter anymore. Don't like any, don't Gina Carano this, like, because Gina Carano was about to get a whole bag in Star Wars. She was about to get her own show, and she screwed it up. So I'm like, Letitia, or is it Letitia? Letitia, say nothing. We want to root for you. Say nothing, do nothing, because she was incredible in this movie. Now, with that said, minor criticisms regarding the movie, because like I said, I mentioned my major criticism, but minor criticism is, even though this movie was almost 3 hours long, I do feel like certain characters didn't really get as fleshed out or get as much development as I would have liked. For example, Winston Dukes and M'Baku, he was there. He had his jokes. He had his powerful moments, but at the same time, he wasn't in the movie. I feel like he was even in the movie probably even more in the first Black Panther than he was in this movie. Or maybe about the same amount of screen time, but I was hoping, considering everything that was happening and the unfortunate loss of Chadwick, we would have gotten more of M'Baku. And yeah, I don't even think we really did. And also because they made this big deal about casting Michaela Cole as Anika, I wish we would have gotten more of her character, learned more of her character, and especially her dynamic with Ayo. I'm not even just talking about the queer representation. I'm just talking about them as characters, because now this is the 4th time we're seeing Ayo. Civil War, the first Black Panther movie, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now Black Panther 2, and we still don't really know much about her character. She doesn't really never had that many lines, and I feel like she should have gotten more at this point in the movie, especially when you're introducing her girlfriend. I wish we got to see more of the Dora Milaje in this movie, especially when again, going back to Anika, who is the trainer of the Dora Milaje. I wish we got to see more of them and their training regimen and all that stuff. Especially, got to give a shout out to my friend and colleague, Kara Mahorn, the Blurred Girl, writer of this new book, which if you guys haven't copped it, get you the copy, called The Protectors of Wakanda, a history and training manual of the Dora Milaje. And the book goes through the entire history, like I said, the history and training manual of the Dora Milaje. It goes through their history, their founding, who founded them, which also coincides to the history of all the previous Black Panthers. It answers questions of like, how do you become a Dora Milaje? What do you go through in your first year, your second year, your third year of training, etc.? What happens when you age out of becoming a Dora Milaje? Because not all of them die during battle. Or what happens when you become too injured to fight as a Dora Milaje? What is the retirement plan for Dora Milaje? The different type of weapons that they use, etc., etc. That book goes through all of that, and that's something I would have liked to have seen on the screen. Now, granted, I do know that they're supposed to do a Dora Milaje Disney Plus show, so maybe they're just saving that for the show. But I still would have liked to have seen more of that and more of them. And again, especially considering Okoye is the general of the Dora Milaje and Anika is the trainer of the Dora Milaje. And also, I guess this is kind of a big criticism, but the scene wasn't long enough to really take me out of it. But there's a moment where Namor is talking to his people underwater, where the CGI does not look good. Hopefully by the time the movie actually comes out, they're still working on it, as opposed to when I saw it 2 weeks ago. So they're still working on the CGI. So by the time the movie comes out in a couple days, it would be somewhat fixed and somewhat better. But yeah, that moment where he's talking to his people, I was like, oh, this looks terrible. But with that said, and I will say, because I'm coming to a close here, because I don't really have much else to say, because, you know, I talked about how much I love this movie. But with that said, I will honestly go out and say that I actually liked Wakanda Forever more than the first Black Panther movie. And a large reason for that is because, talking about the CGI, it wasn't just the CGI, but I think the third act for Black Panther honestly wasn't that good. It wasn't terrible, but that third act, I feel like the movie really dropped the ball, and just how everything came together, how everything ended, and then just how it looked, and the CGI, and the big old CGI cat fight at the end. And even though there was some of that in this movie, they didn't have that third act problem. And the third act in this movie was a little bit more emotionally driven than it was the physical fight. And so because this movie didn't really have that third act problem, and you got more character and world and everything like that, I honestly, yeah, I like this movie more than I liked the first Black Panther. If you couldn't tell, even just in the fact that the first Black Panther wasn't even in my top 5. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got. I'm pretty sure once I stop the camera, I'm going to remember something else. But if that happens, guys, hit that bell notification button, because on Tuesday, November 15th, at about 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have a reunion here on the Black Gay Comic Geek channel with Frankie, Ron, and I. We all went to the red carpet or purple carpet premiere together. We will be going live to talk full spoilers for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully you pull up to the live. Again, hit that bell notification button. But overall, my rating for Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a blockbuster. But with that said, guys, that's going to be enough of me rambling. But when you get a chance to see Black Panther Wakanda Forever, come back to this video. Let me know your thoughts about the movie. Hit me up in the comment section below. Also, if you can, again, I cannot emphasize enough, please hit that thumbs up button. It'll help with the algorithm and getting this video and my channel out there. And this is one of your first time checking out one of my videos, please check out the other videos on my channel. If you like what you see, please subscribe for more and hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I will catch you guys next time. Wakanda forever.